Hello?
Ooh.
Oh, someone give us
I like
microphones.
this. I like this.
So, we're going to get started, I think, because I think there were some things we're running late and we only have 30 minutes and we're chatty cat.
Very chatty Cathy's.
Cathy's.
Yeah. They
So-
normally confine us to like a Zoom call for this kind of thing. So, you know.
Well, now we're live. What could go wrong? And Dan and Bogdan don't know what they signed up for.
No.
So, introductions. This, we don't have a host as well, so we're going to host ourselves.
Yeah, we don't need one.
So this is Breaking Down Barriers, casual conversation. For anyone who doesn't know, we try and have conversations with leading scientists and industry players in the field, and I'm partnered with my partner in crime. So I'm Byrne. I am a researcher at University College London, but also HD family member, and I am
Ashley Clarke, so I am a HDYO board member. I help run their ambassador program, and I'm just everywhere. I don't know what I do and where I am, but I am everywhere. So yeah, that's me.
And we are a comical duo that likes to...
Wow.
I like to bridge the gap with the science, and Ashley make sure we can all understand it.
Yeah, I come up with the silly analogies that everybody giggles at, and it makes me feel good, I'm not going to lie.
So we are delighted to be joined by representatives of uniQure. We'll have
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Leonard. I'm the Executive Director of Global Patient Advocacy at uniQure. And I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. And I will say that this is the first time that they've tried this, first time that we've tried this. So it's a little bit of an experiment, but I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm Bogdan Balas, working with Dan. I'm working in medical affairs at uniQure. Nice to have you all here.
And so we have the scientists on one side and the non-scientists on the other. So we're hopefully going to get things going. And you may have seen uniQure at their booth.
Or not.
Or not. They had some unfortunate events that led to customs not allowing their...
For anybody that hasn't seen uniQure, they are beside the big photo backdrop. Their per bags are still stuck somewhere. We don't know. So they are a table with Dan. So please go and say hello to Dan, because he's
him
feeling
emotional support.
really unloved. So go and give him all the love and support after this session. But yeah, so we're going to jump right in. Awesome. So there has been so much exciting news coming from uniQure lately, and we hope you have all seen it this past year. So before we get into those details and into the science and everything, I'm going to ask Dan here to share a little bit more information about uniQure, who they are, and what they're all about.
Thank you, Ashley. So uniQure is a biotechnology company. It was founded in 1998, so quite a long time ago, over 25 years ago, in Amsterdam. We still have an office in Amsterdam, but the company expanded over the years. We have an office in Lexington, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, and that's where I work. And we have an office in Basel, Switzerland, which is where Bogdan works. We've been in the space for a long time, as I said, and we actually got the first gene therapy ever approved in the Western world back quite a few years ago, and the first gene therapy ever approved for hemophilia B, so that was a big milestone. And right now we are working really hard in HD, and we're going to be talking more about that program as we go on.
So about that program, so the drug, I believe, is called AMT-130. What is that?
AMT-130 is the name of our gene therapy in investigational gene therapy in Huntington's disease. And we heard this morning what a gene therapy is basically using genetic material to try and treat a disease. AMT-130, if I may use the analogy that you heard this morning, is a drug that intends to alter the recipe that produces the huntingtin protein, the mRNA being the recipe. So how it does it? It basically instructs the cells, the brain cells, to produce a blocking mRNA to reduce the levels of the huntingtin protein. And how it does this, we actually inject the drug into the brain. This is done through general anesthesia by a skilled surgeon, and the drug is injected into the structures of the brain that are mostly affected by the huntingtin protein, which is the striatum. And the drug is staying there for a long time, not integrated in the cell genome, but staying next to it and asking the cell to keep producing that blocking mRNA, basically blocking the recipe of producing the huntingtin protein. And maybe Dan can say a few words of what we expect this to do to patients who are living with HD.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what we are trying to do, but I just want to caveat this by saying that these are aspirations, right? So we are in a clinical trial, and so what we're trying to do is to, essentially we want to delay or prevent the progression of HD, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. And if we're able to do that, then that would mean that we would be able to maintain a patient's quality of life. So at a very high level, that's what we're trying to do. And the goal would be to be able to do this over a long period of time. So this is a one-time therapy, right? So that you go through the procedure once, and you would not get the procedure again. So our hope would be that this would, the effect would last for a very long time. And once again, these are the goals that we are trying to achieve. We're doing a clinical trial to find out if we can do that.
I'm all proud of myself because I thought of a science question to ask. Thanks, guys, thanks. So, Bogdan, here's my science question. I'm wondering, what are you going after with this procedure? So are you going after all huntingtin protein in the brain? Are you going after the mutant huntingtin protein? Like which are you going after? Are you fit to differentiate between those? Is that a good question?
That's a great question.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for the question. The drug does not discriminate between the wild type, as we heard this morning, or the mutant huntingtin protein. So it will decrease both.
Okay. So is that why safety is such a good, you seem to be focusing a lot on safety, which we love.
I think it's also, they're sticking needles in a brain, Ashley.
I'm picturing like a DeWalt drill that I use to hang a picture on the wall, and it's like...
It's not like that.
No? Okay, sorry, Dan. Can I sit over there?
But yes, safety is a big
Yeah.
concern, and uniQure are taking all steps
They
to,
are.
to do that.
I shouldn't have jumped.
Ashley knows very well that it is not a DeWalt drill. She has been in our advisory boards. She's seen what it looks like.
It's a casual conversation, guys.
Didn't know it was going to be this casual. No, it's a very thin catheter that goes, puts the gene therapy into the brain. So, but nonetheless, this is not a small deal, right? And was anybody able to attend Spark and Jacosi's session this morning, which was great? If you were there this morning, it was she had props that really you could really visualize how this works. So it's a very similar procedure to what she was describing. She had the catheter, so it's the similar type of catheter that they use. Yes, not a drill.
All right.
Okay, moving on. So let's get to the actual announcements. So there's been some big announcements in 2024 that I think a couple of things that have come out over the last year that would be really great to hear from you of like what that is and what it means for the community.
Yeah, so a little going back into history, the study started in 2019, and it started as a safety study. And because of that, it took a long time to progress and to make sure that we're progressing safely. We've given several updates through the years, but last July, we actually had a lot more patients reaching 2 years of treatment. And we had more information now, which showed that the data showed that there are signs that this drug may actually delay the progression of Huntington's symptoms. And we realized that looking at the CU-HDRS, we heard this morning about this scale, Composite Unified Huntington Disease Rating Scale, which measures the progression of the symptoms of Huntington's disease. We also looked at biomarkers, neurofilament light, which is a biomarker that, if increased, it suggests neurodegeneration. And what we saw in these patients who reached 2 years, the levels of the biomarker actually decreased compared to baseline. We think this is important because normally in patients with HD, the levels of this biomarker only increase with time. We also saw, as in previous reads, that the drug continues to be well tolerated and it has a manageable safety profile. And I just want to pause here and say that all these good signs do not show yet that the drug works or that it is safe, and still there's a lot more work to be done, and the drug is not yet approved by any health authorities. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment, and I hope that answers your question.
Speaking of health authorities, there was also some big conversations with regulators. So just to remind everyone, FDA and EMA are the people that will decide whether a drug works or not once the companies present the data to them. And a lot of companies start these conversations with regulators to, come to decisions like Rachel mentioned this morning about endpoints and things that could be used to decide that the drug is working. And I believe that uniQure had a good conversation with the FDA recently.
Yes, we had several series of good news from our interactions with regulators. Last year in June, we announced that AMT-130 received what's called RMAT designation. We use a lot of abbreviations in the field, so I'm gonna explain what it is. It's basically, it's called Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy. It's a designation that the FDA gives to drugs that have the potential or show the potential of curing or treating severe diseases. And what this means to sponsors is that they have more direct access to the FDA. And they work closely with the FDA to accelerate advanced drug development faster. And this is very good news. It's the first time that Huntington disease potential therapy got this designation. And as a result of this, we had our first meeting with the FDA in November, which was a very productive meeting. We announced the highlights of this interaction in December. And there are several things that we learned from that. One was that the FDA was in agreement that the data from our ongoing studies may serve as basis for what's called accelerated approval, meaning if proven to be positive, we may submit a dossier for the agency to evaluate the benefit risk. And how do they do this? They accepted that they could compare the data from our trial with data from natural history studies. Why is this important? Huntington disease being a slowly progressive disease, it's very difficult to have a control group, meaning a set of patients who are not treated. And we actually had only one control group treated for 1 year, and we saw the potential benefit emerging as of 2 years, not comparing it with this control group because that didn't exist, but comparing it with other patients who were treated or followed in similar conditions. And those are the natural history cohorts, and that's a testimony to all the efforts that the HD community have done to be able to generate such good data, good quality data that could be accepted by regulators.
So natural history is just another word for observational studies like Enroll HD, Track HD, Predict, things that people from all over the world took part in to just be observed and find the differences between someone with Huntington's and someone who doesn't. I was going to say something else. I think what's really positive as well in those conversations that I guess I can comment on coming from someone who works in biomarkers and the research side of things, I think they also were positive about NFL being used in conjunction, in combination with CUHDRS. I think, is that correct?
Yes, and they also agreed that CUHDRS may be an intermediate, may serve as an intermediate endpoint in this analysis as well.
So for people who don't know, this is the first time this composite score of the UHDRS has been positively reviewed or validated by a regulatory organization like the FDA, because it's relatively new in its creation. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. So that's one positive. The fact that they were open to the idea of also biomarker changes being involved in supporting a drug is quite big for not just this program, but a lot of drug programs that are treating HD and using similar tools. Most trials are using the CUHDRS. Most trials are also looking at NFL. So the fact that a regulator is thinking that this could be used for accelerated approval is good for outside of the uniQure program. That's my personal perspective from being somebody who works in biomarkers and thinking about regulatory terms.
Yeah, no, it does. It sounds all amazing. And it does sound like you guys are like taking your time and making sure like safety is so important to you. Like I know that from working with you on other things, you know, and it's great that you have the, what do you call them? The history studies. I'm so bad.
Natural history studies or observational.
So jippers, oh. Anyway, but that's why observational studies are so important to get involved with, because then it means the likes of uniQure are fit to tap into that and pull that information to help with a trial that is happening like here and now. So if you have those opportunities, I would say go for it if you can and if it's right for you, because this is the prime example of why it's important to do them, because they can be used when there isn't, you know, somebody to compare it with, and that's what they need, you know. But it does sound like safety is a huge factor with you guys, which for me, as somebody who lives at risk from this disease, and you know, I hope yous go all the way. I hope that one day we're standing on this stage, you know, giving like the best news that we all hope and wish for, you know. It's the fact that you're taking safety so seriously, and which obviously you would, you know, it means a lot, so it does. And I'm actually really proud. I understood most of what was said there. That's all I'm saying.
I had one more question that came to my mind. Just, you mentioned that they were supportive of that the current trial being used to support an application for the drug to be approved. Does that mean you wouldn't need to do a new trial in the future, like a phase 3, phase 2? Because we heard from Rachel that the drug development process usually goes into kind of phase 1, 2, then to 3, and then kind of post-market surveillance phase 4.
Yeah, I didn't go that much into that detail. I did mention accelerated approval, which is a scheme in the US similar to conditional approval here in Europe, which means we would need to generate additional evidence to confirm the benefit. How would that experiment look like? I think it's a bit too early to tell, and maybe I can pass it on to Dan to walk us through some of the next steps that are ahead of us, because the work has not stopped by...
Yeah. Lauren asks the tough questions. I ask silly questions. Well, sure, look, he's passing the buck to you, Dan, so I'll pass the mic. What are the next steps? Like, talk us through what is coming next. We've heard what is happening at the minute, so tell us what's coming in the future.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, yeah, there's been a tremendous amount of activity, as Bogdan just described, and so that has led to even more activity. So it's going to be a very, very busy year at uniQure for 2025. And actually, we've already announced back in February that we completed the third cohort in our phase 1/2 clinical trial. So what is a cohort? A cohort simply means group, right? So in a clinical trial, you oftentimes look at different groups to sort of understand different things. And so the third group, we have now completed the enrollment of that group. So we announced that in February. And what we are doing now is initiating all of the work that we'll need to do to put together the BLA that Bogdan talked about before. So he described what that was. It's a biologics licensing agreement, and just in really simple terms, it's when you go to the FDA to ask for approval or ask them to review your program or your product, you give them a tremendous amount of information. So you give them all of that clinical data that you've been gathering for us for years, right, since 2019. But even before 2019, we were doing preclinical work for years, for many years, right? All of that data you have to put into a package. All the data about how you manufacture the product and what quality systems do you have in place. All of that goes into this package. And back before we could do this digitally, all of these documents would fill an 18-wheeler like tractor trailer. And those would go on the highway and they would drive down to Washington, D.C. and drop all these off. Thankfully, today we can do this electronically. We don't have to rent an 18-wheeler. But my point is that it's a tremendous amount of data, a tremendous amount of information. And so now at uniQure, we're putting together the teams that we need to build those documents, right? So it's a major project to do that, and that has been initiated. We're going to meet with the FDA to find out what do they want in those data packages. What do they want from the clinical package? When we compare with natural history, how exactly do they want, what data sets are we going to use, and what do they want to see? How are we going to do that? How are we going to match up the patients from the trial to the patients that are in the natural history? Because there has to be a good match, right? We can't just randomly pick patients from natural history. And what do they want from manufacturing? What do they want to see to assure that we can produce this consistently over time? So we'll be having those meetings, and those meetings will happen in the first half of the year. And when we have those meetings, we will announce sort of the outcome of those meetings. And then we'll also be doing an update on the cohort 3 that I talked about before. We'll be doing an update, a data release on what the safety looked like in that cohort. And I think that's it.
Oh, so that's it. That's it, guys. That's it. Yeah, not much.
There's a lot. We're going to be busy. We're going to be busy. Yeah.
So no holidays this year, Dan, okay?
No, that's why we come to Prague.
No, listen, that sounds amazing. So I actually had the absolute pleasure of getting to visit uniQure in Amsterdam. For anybody that doesn't know, I had to actually dye my hair because there's photos everywhere. But no, I did have the absolute pleasure of going with Dan to Amsterdam to their offices, and I was very kindly given tours of their labs, and I got to meet with the researchers and the guys behind the scene. And I remember the one thing that stood out to me most about that visit, and I'd done like a tour of the lab and it was awesome. I got to wear like a coat and everything, with like the little logo, although I didn't get to take it with me. And we had a lunch. And I remember getting into the lunch and it was on like my agenda I'd been given. It was like VIP lunch. And I was like, oh, This is cool. So I was sitting in this room with this group of amazing people, and they were all like the original researchers who had worked on like what you guys are doing. And they were like the OGs of uniQure's HD research, okay? And I'm sitting in there and I'm like, I'm so lucky to be here. Like, this is fab. These guys are the VVIPs, like, completely. And we were sitting chatting. We were just chatting like normal people. And I don't know what I said. And everybody started laughing. And they're like, who do you think the VIP is? And I was like, well, you guys. You're the scientists. You've got the brains. You're, you know, paving ways here. You're doing great stuff. And they were like, no, you're the VIP. I am the least VIP person you've ever seen. Have you heard this accent? Hello. But the fact that those guys who have put their heart and soul, and I can genuinely say they have put their heart and soul into it because I've met them, and they don't see how important the work they know how important the work they're doing is, but they think so much of the community and so much of you guys sitting here in the room today and everybody else watching the recording. I truly felt blessed that I got to experience that firsthand, and we are bridging those gaps between science and community. We really are. I've seen it over the years, and I can see that you guys are doing that, and I got to experience it firsthand. I know how blessed I am that I got to experience that. So how does uniQure like proactively engage the community without putting my face everywhere? What else are you doing?
In all these years, I thought I was the VIP. Until I heard your story.
No.
No, honestly, it was amazing to have you come visit and meet with our scientists.
I forgot to say, can I interrupt you?
Yeah, please.
Oh, guess what, guys? So I went in around the labs, and they give me like this is where I'm not on that side of the stage. They give me this little slide thing, and there was like a wee slice in it. It was like a HD brain. It was like from one of the research thingies, and it was like a brain that you like put HD into, and then you like fix the HD or whatever the science is. It was in my hand. That's all I'm saying. Haven't washed it since, and that trip was like 2 years ago.
That was the first time that I had ever seen the lab.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
so
I mean, it's amazing the work that they do, but here's the thing: the scientists can only do so much, right? And the way that we have engaged with the HD community, with the HD patient organizations, has made such a huge impact on the program. And I'll just give you, like one example. When we were starting to put together the plan for this clinical trial that we're running, we had a patient and caregiver advisory board in Lexington, and solicited feedback on the investigator or the informed consent and the protocol, the schedule of assessments, like everything that would happen in the clinical trial, the design of the trial, and it made a huge impact on ultimately how the trial was designed for the better. Because if we hadn't received that input from patients, we might have gone down some wrong paths, and it might have, brought us to some roadblocks. So we've been doing that since the beginning of the program, and ever since. We've had 4 advisory boards through the years. We've had folks like yourself come to our offices and talk with our employees, because they all need to understand how important the work is that they're doing, because they don't always get it, right? Like when you're behind your computer, when you're in a lab, the patient can feel so far away, like it can just seem theoretical. And then to be able to bring patients into uniQure, it becomes real, and our employees become inspired. And we need that because it's hard work. It really is. And what I would say for for folks is first of all, thank you. Thank you for your engagement, because it really makes a difference.
It does, and it can be seen from you guys that you care, and because I'd never been in that situation before my visit, so I hadn't, and it was a huge step for me, and to walk around those labs and get that better understanding, and I probably would have had that opinion that like scientists are in a lab and they do what they do, and not that they don't care about the people, but this is their job, this is their career, they're doing their job. And that's great, because we can see I'm not going to be a scientist anytime soon. But these guys, that was a bit much of a laugh there, whoever that was. Oh, thanks, Charles. But I can genuinely say, like, when I gave my talk to your colleagues, you know, I said to them, I was like, I live at risk. And, you know, I'm 31, I'm getting old, and my future scares me. And I said to your colleagues, I was like, you guys have the chance and the opportunity, and, you know, I really hope the drive and the passion to, you know, take that fear out of my future. And I seen how much that resonated with them. I seen how much it touched them, you know. So I thank yous for that trip. It was phenomenal. And I guess you guys are doing everything you can to engage with the community, and we would welcome the community to bring that engagement back and visit the booth that doesn't exist for anybody that missed that.
You can tell they're very friendly and very receptive to our...
They just don't have a booth.
Yeah.
They're beside the photo wall.
And who knows, they might do another casual conversation with us in the future.
Did we scare you off? Did we scare you off?
I don't know.
I think we were good.
We have to wrap things up. We're slightly over time.
Are we?
Yeah. It's 2:45, right? Or am I...
2:45, yeah.
Yeah? This is what happens when we don't have a session host.
Yeah, this is why we do this via Zoom.
2 minutes?
So it is.
We're 2 minutes
No,
over?
we're 2 minutes over.
Okay, cool.
We need
We're
to go.
wrapping it up. Okay. Firstly, finally, I would like to...
Finishing up.
I would really like to thank... No,
Oh,
please,
yes.
please do reach out. In all seriousness, these are very lovely gentlemen, and would love to connect with you individually and answer any of your questions. And it isn't the last we'll hear from uniQure.
No.
So thank you so much.
Visit their booth.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
Thank you,
to HDYO.
Bogdan. Thank you.